You're listening to the Money Dad Podcast, practical financial and business conversation from a dad who knows money. I'm April Adams, and please welcome my dad, the Money Dad, Robert Adams. Well, Dad, it's our first podcast, and up until a week ago, you didn't even know what a podcast was.
Don't try to be cruel to your father.
Well, I know we started this because you've helped me out a bunch with my financial journey.
Thank you.
And I've gotten to be live a life that's debt-free thanks to you. And so, but you have a lot of advice to give because of your experiences. And so we want to do this to share the wealth, so to speak.
Am I sharing only the good ones or good ones and the bad ones?
Oh, you can share from any experience, but I think we're going to get into really the first question that we want to talk about because you've seen it, I've seen it, people that are spiraling in debt, but they're also, and it might be a lot of it is thanks to student loans, credit card debt, maybe paying off a car, all kinds of things. And they're spiraling in debt, but they're also not making a whole lot of money. So what do we do when we're spiraling, first off? And then if we're not making enough money to cover everything, how do we get out of that hole?
Well, April, first of all, we have to see why you're spiraling in debt. Back in the day, when I didn't make any money and I had a job, I spent money like a drunken weekend person. Every weekend I'd take my money. I would go buy beer for everybody. And then at 2:00 a.m. breakfast, I would go buy breakfast for everybody. And I wake up on Monday morning and wonder where in the world did my money go? And I had no money for the essentials in life, like rent, electricity, and barely enough gas to be able to get to the job, for the next week. And a lot of times people don't focus on what they're spending money on. They only want to have a good time, and there's nothing wrong with having a good time, but you got to make sure that you have enough money to be able to have a good time. Not only do people spend money like weekend drunks, there's your Amazon drunks. I've seen more people go on Amazon, spend about 4 hours a day on Amazon. Not only are they spending money that they don't have, they're also spending about 20% of their daily activities on Amazon. It's almost like they're addicted to it. So there's all kinds of reasons why, people, get into debt. My other favorite saying I've heard people say, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, that was on sale. Well, just because it's on sale don't mean you go buy it.
You're still spending money, right?
Amen. And you're not even keeping up with it. The other thing is, that's a great deal. And if it's a great deal, they think they need to go buy it because it's a great deal, only to find out that it's sitting on a shelf somewhere or sitting in a garage somewhere, and they never used it, but it was a great deal. Take, for example, here's my favorite for people that think Starbucks is the greatest. Every day they'll go spend about $7 on Starbucks, and then you multiply that by 5, and you multiply that by 52, and they're averaging about $150 a month on Starbucks. So why do people get into spiraling debt? They get into spiraling debt because they don't pay attention to what they're spending their money on. So I see that as the biggest problem. So
the first thing we got to do is wake up.
Yeah, you got to change the way that you think. You have to change the way you look at things. Like one of the sayings that you and I and Zach talked about was, you can't change your life, unless you make an effort to change your life. You'll always be in financial ruins unless you change the way you spend your money and the way you look at finances. It really goes back to Economics 101, supply and demand. You got a big demand for what you want, but you may have a low supply. So therefore, it equates out to needs and wants. You have to make sure that you are paying attention to the things that you need. And if you're one of these people that's already spiraling in debt, then you don't look at anything that you want. So a lot of times, April, I've tried to tell people, make sure you put on your blinders and look straight down your tunnel and do not look at anybody else's spending and what they're doing and how they're doing it. One of the things I've told a lot of people, if you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you always got. So you have to, first of all, change the way that you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what you're talking about is the B word, which is budget. Set
Sure.
a budget. And that can be a scary word for a lot of people because it's very difficult to sometimes come face to face with the truth. But let's say, all right, I'm cutting out a lot of these wants. Do I have to cut out everything? Do I have to give up my Netflix?
Well, that depends on whether or not you have enough money. That's why I said, you have to look, are you bringing in enough to take care of what you want to spend your money on? And you have to change the way you look at things. Like we talked about before, your life will never change unless you change your life. Mm-hmm. Your finances will never change unless you change the way that you look at them. So that's why we spoke a while ago about tunnel vision. You want to have your own tunnel vision. You do not want to look at anybody else. It's learning to get over it. There's a lot of people out there, I just want to have a good time. My friends are having a good time. Well, your friends might also be broke. Mm-hmm. But then there's some people that are having a good time because they can afford it. But if you want to ever get to a place that you can have a good time, and if you ever want to get to a place that you can, have fun in life, then you got to get your finances in control. So you spoke about budget, but the first thing you have to do before you can even create a budget is you must identify the things that you are spending your money on. So budget may be what we talk about next time, but let's talk about how do we get to a place that you can create a budget to know where you are. I've spent time with people before, and it's very frightening when we write down everything and we see where the money's going, and all of a sudden everybody has those oh crap moments, like what do I do now? So that goes right back to what you said in the beginning, April, that people are spiraling in debt, but they're spiraling in debt because they don't even know how they got there. Mm-hmm. So to get out of debt, to get everything to where it needs to be, we have to identify down to the gnat's rear end where all our money is going. So if you make that trip to Starbucks every week, then you need to write that down. You need to write down how much money you're spending. So help me out. I'm the old guy, April. How do you young people keep up with that now? I'd write it down in a notebook and put it on a spreadsheet. Is there a better way to do that?
I mean, you can find apps. You can take notes in your notes app on your phone. There's a lot of stuff out there. I'm not going to promote any particular one, but there are yeah, until they pay us. Yeah. But there you can just Google budgeting apps and put free on there because some will charge you, some won't for your basic services. A lot of them won't. So whatever works, whether it's carrying a notebook around where you can make a note or whether you get something digital, but those things are helpful to keeping up.
Okay, well, let's start. We woke up today. What's one of the first things that we did? We took a shower.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to write down what our water bill is.
Yeah.
How much does water cost? We turned on some lights. What is our electricity? How much does it cost on an average? We know that in the spring months, some things are going to be cheaper. In the summer and winter months, they're going to be more expensive. So give yourself a contingency, see where you are, and then be able to know what those costs are going to be. You woke up in some place that had a roof over your head, so it's either your house or some place that you rent. So what is that payment? Along with that payment, if it's your house, comes insurance. Mm-hmm. Also, you have taxes. So as you go through things, I think you see where I'm going. You write down every single thing that you spend your money on. I will never forget that back in the day when I was writing software, a bank came to my school and was trying to interview certain students for a job. And what they did is they laid a blank piece of paper on the desk and they said, tell me how you are going to get from this desk down to the car on the street 2 stories down. And everybody was thinking they were going to come in and talk about code and how you do this and how you do that. But when I started thinking about it, I said, okay, they want to know how you're going to get there. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I did is I wrote down, I'm going to take my left leg and turn it to the left. I'm going to take my right leg and turn it to the right. I'm going to make sure my feet are firm on the floor and I'm going to stand up. I'm going to turn to the right, walk to the front, make a left, go to the door, put my hand on the door, turn it down, pull it back, shut the door. You get the message. Mm-hmm. All the way down to the 2nd floor. Those were the people that got hired.
Yeah.
Because when you write software, you can't be almost right. You have to be right. And the thing about writing software is you have to be detailed and you have to understand everything that's happening.
Know the process.
Know the process. Same thing in your financial life. You must know the process. You must know everything, and I've said it before, down to the gnat's rear end on where your money is going. So let's continue on. We've taken a shower. We've turned on the lights. We live in the place. Now we're going to go get in the car. The car may have a car payment. The car will have taxes. And that taxes is not a yearly expense. It is a monthly expense that you must put money back for to take care of it when it comes time to pay it. The insurance could be monthly, could be every 6 months, but it's still a monthly expense. Okay, you go to crank up your car. You was like that weekend drunk, you don't have any more money for gas. So now you got to call Uber. You don't have enough money for Uber, so you're walking to work. That car's got to have gas, April. So how much money do you spend on gas every week? How much money do you spend on gas every day? Whatever your method is of breaking it down.
And your oil change and maintenance. Keep up with that.
You have been trained very well, April.
So well.
So as you go through, and to your point, that car's going to have tires every now and then. It's going to have oil changes. It's going to have things, and sometimes it just breaks, and you're going to have to spend money on it. So you need to put some type of contingency in there of these are the things that could come up, and I need to put money back to allow for this. Now you put the car on the street, and here we go to work. Donut place looks good, but I think I want a biscuit. Whatever your desire is, and here we go. We're not beating you up, Starbucks, but you're just a great example because you're so expensive to me, but I'm an old guy. So that's $7 a day, that's $7 a trip, turns into $150 a month. By the way, I hope Black Rifle wants to come in here one day because that coffee's a whole lot better. Thin Blue Line, by the way. But anyway, it's a whole lot cheaper than Starbucks. So as we go through, what did you spend your money on for breakfast? Now it's time for lunch. Did you take your lunch? Take your lunch. That means you got to buy groceries. What are you spending money on for your groceries?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of see, I'm trying to give you an example with the programming, and I'm trying to say, take that same example and try to think of every single thing that you spend money on, because you cannot do that awful B word until you know what you got to put on the B sheet.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have everything written down. So now we go to work. Lunch now. I found out a normal sandwich, chips, and drinks about $12 a day. Multiply that by 5. Whoop, that's $60 a week.
Yep.
Just say there's a 4-week month. That's $240 a month on lunch. You've hit the Starbucks thing, $150 a month. So that's pretty expensive lunch and breakfast, and you ain't even got to dinner yet. Things that happen during the day. People like to snack. If you're going to go to the convenience store and spend $3, write down your $3. Now, you see where I'm going with all this.
Yeah, so we have to know what we're spending, and so be very detailed in that. Kind of like if you're trying to lose weight and count calories, you count every single thing that comes in, because those things matter. So with our money, we had to track it.
And I am so glad you brought up the weight thing, because I'll go back to where we talked about before. It's all about changing the way that you think. All of us, come January the 13th, which is your birthday, by the way, we all want to lose weight.
Oh, I thought we were done with our resolutions by January the 13th.
No, some people just want to start them January 13th because
okay.
they still got spillover from Christmas.
And you have New Year's and all those things.
That's right. So you got to get past New Year's in a couple of weeks to settle down. Then you get serious about the time your birthday comes up.
But then there's birthday cake, so.
That's right. Never mind. So January the 14th, that's when you start. Okay. So at that point, let's see. You made me think about something, April. That's why that's why I hesitated. You never get started.
Because there's always something.
There's always something else.
Because then we run into Valentine's.
Valentine's
and the
coming up,
candy, and then Easter, and you want those Cadbury cream eggs, and.
I'm glad you like them, but I'm not gonna help Cadbury on that one. But they were good, but when I could eat them. But anyway, to that point, you have to learn to say, I got to do without. I got to eliminate those things that I want, and I've got to focus on my needs, because it was real easy to get into debt. Like I said, like a weekend drunk. You spend your money, and all of a sudden you wake up, on Monday morning, it's like, I don't have any money. So you have to change your attitude. And then here's the bad thing. I've kind of picked on myself about the weekend drunk. Like I say, I've been there, did that, bad decisions, in life. Not proud of them, but it happened. But it helped me to become the person that I am now, because it showed me a lot of ways that I was doing things wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, you can't keep doing the things you want to do. If you do, you will always be spiraling in debt, and then there is a bottom to the spiral, and it's called bankruptcy, starting all over again. And you do not want to start all over with the same habits.
Mm-hmm.
So change your habits, change the way you think, be focused on the things that you know you need to do, because now, as we spin over to the big B word, we have now written down every single thing that we can think of, and we've multiplied it by each day. We multiplied the weeks by 52, and we divided it by 12, and now we've come up with a monthly cost.
Okay.
And as you start to list those monthly costs on whatever all of those items were, here's what's going to happen to most of you, because it happened to me. You're spending a whole lot more than you're bringing in.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And that is why you're spiraling in debt. So to kind of recap a little bit of it, why am I spiraling in debt? Because I spend money like a weekend drunk. I don't pay attention to anything I do, And then when it's all over with, or I'm an Amazon person that, oh, that's a great deal on Amazon, so now you're an Amazon drunk. The point I'm trying to make is you're not focusing on where your money's going. If you make a ton of money and you don't need a budget and you still got money left over at the end of the month, then God bless you, have a great day. But most of you out there, you are living from paycheck to paycheck. You can't seem to get ahead. And the only way you're going to get ahead is have a change in life and a change in the way that you look at your finances. One thing I used to tell people, April, is there's about 3 or 4 ways to get money. If both of you's full-time job ain't working, you better go get a part-time job too. Or you hope that somebody leaves you some great big inheritance and you stop, some of your spending. So another thing I've told people is if you're trying to get ahead, look at something around your house, where you went and you bought all that stuff because you thought it was a great deal and it's sitting out in your carport. You might want to go sell some of it and generate some income to bring some things in, because if you don't get a hold of it, that spiral's going to hit the bottom. And the thing that really bothers me about things hitting the bottom, especially if you're a married couple, is money has caused more divorces than anything else. So getting your money under control, getting things in place that you know where they are, know how to spend it, know what's causing the problem. All that listing things, April, is where you identify what is causing me to spiral into debt, and then changing the attitude and deciding, how do I get out of debt. Now, I'm sure that as we go through these podcasts, there's so many ways that I can tell you, how to do, what to do, maybe sometime debt consolidation. But the first thing is you have to identify what you're spending money on. I'm wearing it out because that's what this podcast is about. And I'm trying to make a point that I hope that you'll never forget. I hope it rings in your head. I had a great thing happen to me yesterday. I was advising this couple on whether or not they need to start their own business. And they laid everything out to me. And it looked like that they were in a position to start their own business. And the wife was going to become the bookkeeper. So I told her, I said, well, what you need to figure out is how many cheeseburgers do you have to sell every day to make sure you can cover all the costs of the business. So yesterday I stopped by that shop because they're working on a truck for one of the companies I work with. And when I walked in the door, they said, we have your truck finished. And I want to tell you, thank you for having confidence in us. And I will never forget how many cheeseburgers we have to sell to make it work. How many hours do we have to bill to cover things? So all of you spiraling debt, how much money do you have to make to take care of the things that you want to take care of? Or what do you need to get rid of if you don't make enough money?
Okay, so let's say, to kind of recap all of that, because everybody who's out there listening, he's talking to you like he would talk to me. And so we've gone
Absolutely.
We've gone into a lot. But to break it down, we're going to evaluate what we're spending first, and then maybe go through and cut out the things that we think we can live without.
Yes.
All right. And then once we do that, then we figure out how much money we need to cover the things that we need and want.
Absolutely.
Because maybe instead of saying let's just cut out every luxury, make a list of like your needs, your I really want, and then stuff you can live without.
Perfect, April. You have learned so much over your lifetime from your dad. That's a very good way to look at it, and that's the things people need to do.
Because it's hard to hear like, oh, you had to cut out everything. So maybe have that list, and as you go, you might decide, hey, maybe I can live without things more than I thought, or there might be some non-negotiables on those want lists.
Well, that is a great point. You do not have to cut out everything, but when I talk about changing the way that you think, what you do have to do is learn to get over it. Some things you just cannot afford. So your old man is old school. When I'll say it this way. The way to always make the best decisions in life and whatever you do is to remove all the emotions. Don't be so attached to Starbucks. Don't be so attached to Amazon. Don't be so attached to anything if you cannot afford it.
And maybe this would help too with that, because you say pull out the emotions, but people are emotional. We're not robots.
Absolutely.
So instead of looking at it as I have to cut this out forever, I have to cut it out until I can get things under control.
Amen. But you have to make those hard choices first to be able to get to the point that you can stop that spiral down. And when you stop that spiral down, there are many things that we can talk about as we move forward with these podcasts that we can show people, help people, encourage people to be able to put a stop to it and become financially independent. And we will do it in a very common sense way, because everything about finances is common sense, emotions, and determination. One of my favorite things is everyone needs to get a PhD. A lot of you are already 1/3 there with the P. You're poor because of your bad decisions and you're spiraling. But to get out of that, you now need to be hungry. That's the H part. You need to be hungry enough that I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm ready to get out of it. And as we move forward, we'll tell you that. And then the last part is I want to be determined to make this happen. So everybody needs to get a PhD. You're already poor maybe because of bad choices. But now let's get hungry and determined to get out of this hole. Can I share one story with you?
Sure.
Well, at one time, you don't know it because you were just born, but I had started my own business and I had some work started, and I went through a period that I didn't have any work. I didn't realize I had to go out and sell it, do it, and everything else. So you had to cover the sales department, the running your own business, and going out and performing the work. And I was trying to make a decision on, do I go back and try to get my old job back, or do I keep moving forward? So we used to live beside an African American church, and it was in the summertime. I was sitting on the porch, the windows were raised, and I heard the man over there screaming and talking about adversity. So here's what he said about adversity. One time this farmer had this goat, and this goat was his favorite pet. And he would take this goat with him everywhere he went. And one time they were going through the woods. They was looking for things. And the farmer always took his shovel with him. And this goat fell off in this old well. And he tried and he struggled and he tried and he struggled to get that goat out of the well. And he couldn't get it out. So then he was so distraught. So he just closed his eyes because he couldn't bear to watch. He just started shoveling to cover up that goat to put him out of his misery. And as he shoveled, finally he didn't hear the goat whining anymore, and he just cried, and he couldn't bear to look. So he just kept shoveling, and he kept shoveling, and he threw his shovel down because he was so hurt. And he turned around to walk off. But then, all of a sudden, he heard the goat. He turned around, and there that goat was standing at the top of the hill. You know why, April? Because every time that farmer throwed that shovel full of dirt down in there, that old goat just shook it off and packed it under his feet, and he come on out that hole. People, you can be like the goat. You can let it cover you up and bury you, and you will never get out. But if you shake it off and pack it under your feet, you will come out of that and you will rise all over adversity.
Well, there you go. Stand on top of your debt.
And shake it off and do the right things.
So what we have to do is we have to stand on our debt. We have to shake it off, and I guess start finding us a way out of that pit. And so that's the first step. We have to evaluate, and then we're gonna move into budgeting. Maybe next time talk more in detail about budget. But budget is pretty much just figuring out the money you need to cover your costs.
So everyone's assignment this week is to start listing every single thing that you can think of you spend money on. And remember, taxes and insurance is a monthly expense. It is not an annual expense. It is not a semi-annual expense. So calculate what those things are monthly, track where your money's going, make a list of all those things, and then you can start the budgeting and tracking process.
All right, so next time we'll cover budgeting, and then once we realize we don't have enough money to cover our expenses, then what are we going to look into?
Then we're going to see how to stop the spiral and get out of debt and the things that we need to do to make that happen.
Thanks for listening to the Money Dad Podcast. Head on over to our website, themoneydadpodcast.com, for more resources and to send in any questions that you might have. Do your homework, and we'll see you next week.